It's really a pleasure now to introduce not only a great friend, but a great professional. It's a privilege to have him here. His name, Sree Sreenivasan. He doesn't need much of an introduction. Those of you that don't know him yet, he's the Chief Digital Officer of the Met Museum. And he's going to be sharing with us a very interesting presentation on his experience leading mobile, social, digital at the Met Museum. Let's please welcome Sree Sreenivasan.
Thanks very much, Ernesto, and hello everybody. How are you doing? Good, all right, welcome. I'm so impressed that you all came so early with the rain and everything else. When we closed to 9:30, there were just a handful of people, and then the rest of you came, so thank you. I'm delighted to be here from New York City, and I had thought it would be a beautiful sunny day outside, but it's not, but that's okay. It's still better than most of the weather in New York. Today we're going to talk about social media from the angle of what we do at the Metropolitan Museum. I run a 70-person startup inside a 145-year-old company. And I'm hoping that the work that we do will be of interest to you. And even if you're not in the arts world yourself, that you will find ideas and tips that will be of interest and will help you do your social media work better. I came to the Met about 2 years ago after spending 21 years as a professor at Columbia University teaching digital media, journalism, etc. And they were looking for somebody who didn't know anything about art, and I was super qualified. And it was a big step for me to leave Columbia and go to the Met, and I've learned so much along the way, and I look forward to sharing that with you. I can't actually see the screens that you're looking at, so if at some point something drops out or it's the wrong slide or something, let me know. I think I have it synced up, but if it doesn't work, just somebody yell out. What I've done is I've taken my presentation and I've already tweeted it out. So if you just go to Twitter and find me @Sree, you can hit retweet on the tweet and share it with your friends. So if you just go to @Sree and just hit retweet on there or favorite it or both, then you can share it with your friends. And you can see that the slides, the address for the slides is on the screen there, which is bit.ly/Sree SMWMiami. So you have all of that in one place. And please do, I encourage you to share it with folks. I will be looking at the hashtag later, and if there are questions that we don't get to answer, we can talk afterwards as well. Now, my presentation is interactive in the sense that it's online, and everything that you see there that's a link, you can actually click on there. And anything that I mention, you can click in the presentation itself and get to the actual document. This is all done on Google Slides, which makes it easy to share information like this. You all know how important it is to do things on a mobile platform, and everybody talks about that. So I encourage everybody to think about what are you doing that's different this year for mobile that you may not have done before on mobile. And I decided this year that my effort to be better at mobile would be to do all my presentations from my iPhone. So this computer here is just a decoy. What I'm really using to do my presentation is my iPhone. And the reason I'm doing that is because we talk about the importance of mobile, but this is the best way for me to learn how to do mobile better. And so the entire presentation is done off my phone and using this little adapter from Apple. And I would ask all of you, what are you doing to be smarter at mobile this year? The New York Times did something very dramatic. It turned off access for its staff at the headquarters to the digital web platform so that everyone had to use the mobile site to look at the New York Times. And you can think about how dramatic that is, because if you're used to looking at it on a desktop or a laptop all day, Well, your audience is looking at things on the phone. So it's very important for us to think about like our users look at it and those who are our customers. So I thought that was a very interesting exercise that they went through, and you might also think about some version of that. On the screen there, you have a link to my social media guide, as well as on the bottom right, to two items on Facebook. One is my Sree Tips Facebook page, where I post tips about digital media that you can follow. But I wanted to invite all of you to my closed Facebook group. It's on Facebook. If you just go to Sree Advanced, if you just search Sree's Advanced on Facebook, it's a closed group. Once you join it, I will approve you, and then you'll find about 1,200 people around the world who are interested in social media and are sharing and answering questions. So anytime you have a question about a new tool or something new that's happening, someone somewhere in the world will be awake and participate with you. We have dozens of people from Miami on it as well. So if you just go onto Facebook and search Sree'(S) Advanced, you'll see it and you can join it there. Whenever I speak, I always start with the ABCs. And the first is always be charging. Always be charging your phone. How many of you are charging your phone right now? Raise your hand. A couple of people, there you go. I tell people you need to be like a detective. When you go into a room, you start looking for where the power is, right? So you need to sit near there. You need to think that way. Our grandchildren will not believe there was a time when grown adults would be on their hands and knees at airports looking for juice, right? And there you have it, battery pack. Everyone who has an external battery pack, raise your hands. Look at you, that's fantastic. Now, I want to show you kind of the logical extreme to which I took this. By the way, I have a Mophie case. Anyone here have a Mophie case? It's a case with a battery in there, right? M-O-P-H-I-E. By the way, I make no money from anything I'm talking about. You should know that. But I found this ridiculous battery pack. It looks like a laptop. Look at this. Gives you 10 charges on your iPhone, which is really crazy. But this is, you know, it's also a weapon. I can hit somebody with it. It's pretty good. But all of us should have some kind of way to extend our battery life, because this is not just something extraneous. This is core to what we do as professionals, how we're working, where we're going. The second ABC is always be connecting. And I'll be mentioning various people throughout our session. Please connect with people when you don't need them, so that they're there when you need them. And what I mean by that is connect with me when we are just kind of chatting like this. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I'm at Sreenath on Instagram. But the main idea is to connect with people when you don't need them, so that they're there when you need them. And that's the best way to think about connecting. And I hope, by the way, you've all connected with the organizers of this conference who've done such a fantastic job. I don't think we've thanked them enough. Have we done that? Let's give them a round of applause, everybody, for putting this together. Everyone who pulled this together. Is that a Google Glass? What's going on there? Wow, okay. And then finally, always be collecting. And what I mean by, not just because I'm at a museum, I'm saying always be collecting because I mean collect with your phone. And I've seen so many of you taking pictures of what we're talking about, and that's really useful advice. So for example, if you take a picture of this slide, then you have the entire presentation with you. And by the way, a bonus, my social media team at the Met has put together a couple of dozen slides about how the Met does its social media, and that's attached to the end of this presentation. So if you have this presentation, you have those slides with you also. So it's a very good reason. Don't get it for me, get it for the great work that the Met is doing. So use your phone and take pictures. What happens is, you know, these are about 30, 40 slides. No one's going to look at 40 slides. Giving you 40 slides is like giving you 400 slides. You'll never look at them again. But if you, from today's presentation, you have 2 or 3 things that you will want to look at later, share with your friends. It's a great way to connect and share ideas. Because I'm here in Florida, and because there was some news about David Carr, I just wanted to tell you about this incredible presentation that David Carr did. You may know David Carr was this famous New York Times columnist who died, and he spoke at a TEDx Pointer event that I was also speaking at, and he had a couple of wonderful thoughts in there about how we should be thinking about social media. And he said, at a conference like this, the most important social media device is the person next to you. Meaning, don't get so caught up in the social media that you don't connect with people. Otherwise, you could be watching this on live stream at home. What's the point of coming to Miami, getting together, and being in person? And then the other thing he said is, don't be so caught up in creating social media that you don't consume any social media. So please watch this video if you get a chance. Again, you can just click on the video on my presentation and you can listen to David, who was such a great, great inspiration for so many of us. So when Ernesto invited me to come speak, he told me about all the great speakers that had already been lined up, some fantastic people from all over the country. And I thought, this is really nice. And I would want to be part of this event. And I just want to show you, however, that sometimes what you see is not what you get. I went into this tool called Twitter Counter, and it shows that I'm the world's 84,000th most important person on Twitter. So, you know, Ernesto was so desperate, number 83,000 was not available, and so he had to invite 84,000. And part of that is because this is all based on kind of raw data, and I'm a big fan of data and studying it and using it, but this also shows you that data is not always what it's cracked up to be. What do I think social media can do for professionals? Social media can do 4 things. Number 1, it can help you find new ideas, trends, and sources. It can help you connect with stakeholders, customers, and others in newer, deeper ways. It can help you bring eyeballs, traffic, and attention to your work. And it can help create, craft, and enhance your brand. And what I'll say is, this is sort of obvious to most of you, but are you doing all 4 of these things? That would be an important question for you. Are you maybe doing 1 or 2? Are you doing all 4 as part of your work? So I work at the Met, as you heard, and the Met this is the front part of the, how many of you have been to the Metropolitan Museum? So many, wow. Now you have a friend at the Met, let me know when you come next time. You also have my email address on the front slide. I show this photograph to people. It was taken from across the way at the Met by one of our 12 full-time photographers, Eileen Travell, and she took this with her iPhone 5S. And what that says to me is that expertise matters. Expertise matters, because I could have taken this photograph, it would look terrible. But when Eileen takes it, because she's a professional, she's really good at this, right? So when I was teaching journalism at Columbia, people would say to me, how can you teach journalism when journalism is dying? Shouldn't you not be, aren't you worried about that? And I would say that in a world where everybody's a journalist, the trained journalist stands taller. In a world where everyone's an ad professional, the trained folks stand taller. That's why Miami Ad School exists, right? Because everyone's a writer, everyone's a photographer, but the trained folks stand taller. So it's very important for us to understand that as you're looking at it. And if you haven't seen the Met in a terrible mess in the front for 5 years, that means you haven't been to the Met in 5 years, and you've got to come back. That's our new plaza. There's the day view, and there's the night view. At the Met, we think of 4 spaces. We have the main building on 82nd Street and 5th Avenue. We have something called the Cloisters, the medieval gardens. Someone posted on Instagram, I love going to the Cloisters. It reminds me of Game of Thrones. And then we have just taken over the old Whitney building. You may have heard that the Whitney has moved to this beautiful new space at the High Line, and I encourage you all to go and see that. But we've taken over, we're opening in March. But we have a 4th space as well, and the 4th is the Digital Met. And our director, Tom Campbell, has said that our physical visitors and our digital visitors are of the same importance. And that's kind of unusual for a physical institution to talk like that. When you talk about the Met, I want to share some really fantastic news for us. We were named this week by TripAdvisor as the #1 museum in the world, which is pretty amazing. And the fact is that all 25 museums are fantastic, and we're just happy to be on the list. But this shows you that when people are making decisions about where to go, they spend a lot of time thinking about where people direct you to go based on other people's recommendations as much as they do our own recommendations. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is the TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Awards, and this was just announced this week. Whenever I come to Miami, I always make sure I can try to spend some time with one of the most influential people in Miami. She was in New York, she just moved here. Her name is Jennifer Preston. And Jennifer is head of journalism at the Knight Foundation. And she already tweeted this morning. And she taught me, when I was teaching with her at Columbia for 5 years, she taught me one of the most important sayings about social media. And I wanted to share that with you. She said, "Show excellent judgment on Twitter." Show excellent judgment on Twitter. And that's maybe the best advice I can give you, and that came straight from Jennifer. So as part of what I said, always be connecting, connect with her right now. Follow her on Twitter, and maybe give her a shout out and say, "Hey, Jennifer Preston, we're talking about you at SMW Miami." And connect with her when you don't need her, right? So she's a fantastic resource. You're all really lucky that she moved to Miami and works here in the city. As I think about social media, there are a couple of other things I learned that I wanted to share with you. One was this quote from Alexia, who is great to follow. I hope you'll follow her from TechCrunch. She's a writer at TechCrunch. She said, "There's a question before marriage. Is this the person I'd like to watch stare at the phone for the rest of their lives?" It captures for me like the essential problem we have in today. Like everybody's down here looking like this, right? Another thing that she said that I love, that I shared with everybody: putting your current employer on your Twitter handle is like getting a tattoo of your current boyfriend on your arm. Now, we hope it works out and you get married and have a long life, a happy life, but there's a chance it won't work out, right? Something to think about. So again, you can just tweet at Alexia and say, "Hey, we're talking about you here." She's a great writer at TechCrunch. I also think about a lot of the free tools that are out there, and I wanted to point some of them out. In order to do social media images, I use 3 particular tools: Canva, Photor, and PicCollage. Canva, Photor, and PicCollage, these are great free tools to make social media images. I also use allthefreestock.com, which is a tool that gives you access to free stock photography and video. And then one of my favorite tools that most people are not using, on the bottom left, whosharedmylink.com. If you put a link in there, it'll tell you every blogger and journalist who shared your link. So it's a very good way for you to keep track of who are the influencers who have followed you and used your tools. Does that make sense? I am going to, at the end of my presentation, talk a little bit about a tool that'll help you identify your top 100 followers. Who are your top 100 followers, and are you connecting with them as much as you should be and could be? Last year, one of my heroes in social media died. Somebody who was so influential in social media, but was not like a 25-year-old who was using social media. And his name was Roger Ebert. You all know Roger Ebert, the great writer of film criticism. And I wrote a column on 5 things I learned from Roger Ebert. The first was to be interesting in real life. By the way, I spelled interesting wrong there, but that's my mistake. Be interesting in real life. That's like the number one lesson. If you want to be successful in social media, be interesting in real life. Number two, great content gets you great followers. Great content gets you great followers. People always ask me, how do I get more followers? And my last thing I'll do in my presentation is to give you my social media success formula. And I'll do that at the end, because if I gave it to you now, you'll all leave. So I want to make sure you stay for that. Number three, be humble. I love the way that Roger Ebert, who was the most famous film critic in America, was humble on social media. Number four, engage with others, connect, respond, participate in social media. And number five, that social media has changed the role of expertise. You don't need to be someone who is, in fact, in his 60s, as he was, or 70s, to have expertise. You can be an expert by being really passionate about a particular subject that you're interested in. So I'd encourage you to think about social media in that sense. One of the things we think about at the Met, and all of you do in your own work, is how do we connect better with millennials? And I found the perfect essay on this topic. Even though it's about journalism, I think it applies to every industry. And this is by a guy named Damon Kiyosao, and you can see his Twitter handle and a link to his entire essay on here. He said, while much of journalism being produced by legacy news organizations is of value to younger readers, it does not entirely speak their language or fully reflect their lives. And I think you can substitute words for journalism for your industry, and you will find that this works perfectly. So I encourage you to read this. If you have any interest in connecting with millennials, I know most of you are millennials, that you will find this very enlightening. And again, say hi to Damon, who's at D. Kiyosao now, when you don't need him. I was interviewed earlier this year about the top technology trends, and I said that it feels like it's 2006 all over again. Top technology includes podcasting, email newsletters, as well as blogging. And these are all really old, right? But what makes them so popular today is because the technology has become better for producing these and for consuming these. And that's an important way of thinking about this. In terms of email newsletters, anyone here read The Skim? S-K-I-M-M. The Skim is produced by a group of women, and it's aimed at millennial women. I'm not a millennial woman, but I read it every day because they have understood the power of email newsletters. There were two women from NBC who quit and started The Skim. And it is so effective. And what we did was we invited them to come to the Met and to teach us. How is it that you're doing so well? How come you have such great open rates, such great click-through rates? What is the secret? And so I encourage you to read and study them if you can. And there might be other newsletters also that you should be looking at. I also have a podcast that you can find. It's got the immodest name of @Sree Show. And you can find it by just going on iTunes or your favorite podcasting tool. And it comes out of CBS. CBS bought a whole network called Play.it, because they believe that podcasting has become so important. Now, in the middle of all of this, as we talk about what we do here at the Met and what you do and everything else, there's a core idea that we all need to think about. And that is that the scarcest resource of the 21st century is human attention, right? How do we get and keep people's attention? And this quote comes from Les Hinton, who was publisher of the Wall Street Journal. So another way to practice is to practice by tweeting at him right now and say, hey, at Les Hinton, we're talking about you in Miami. And there he is in New York or wherever he lives, and you grab him and you drop him in Miami right now. Again, you don't need him for anything. Connect with him when you don't need him so that he's there when you need him. If you Google TEDx and my name and attention, you'll see I did a TEDx talk about attention based on this slide and the topics around that. Now, the reason why it's so hard to get people's attention is captured well in this slide. If you look, at the upper right, it says there'll be 1 trillion photographs taken this year. 1 trillion photographs. And our goal is to make sure that our pictures are good enough, and then good enough to be seen and found and connected by people around the world. That's something for all of you to think about. Now, when I was young, I wanted to be a millionaire. And I didn't realize that I'd be a millionaire in unread Gmail messages. If you look on there, you'll see that I have 1 million unread Gmail messages. But in the middle of all that, Ernesto connected with me, found me, and brought me here. So that's one of the ways that we all should be thinking about how we connect with people. How is it that he was able to cut through the clutter of 1 million unread messages, right? All of us have this problem, and we all have to kind of think about that as we're going forward. I started by talking about how things are started to change and what we're trying to do at the Met. And one of the ways we think about it is through these slides from Mary Meeker. Some of you know her name. She runs the most important presentation about technology every year. She does 196 slides in 30 minutes. It's mind-boggling. And her slides are on the screen. You can click and get to her entire presentation. If you go on my presentation, you can click through and see. And you can see that in 20 years, we went from 35 million users of the internet to 2 billion users of the internet. We went from 80 million people on cell phones to 5.2 billion people on cell phones. And our social, our digital, our mobile work has to reflect all of that. And at the Met, we've been changing with the times. You can see on the upper left is the first item to ever come to the Met, and we used to catalog it on little cards in 1870. Then we went to punch cards, which are a way for computers to talk to mainframes in the 1970s and 60s. And now we use a more sophisticated program to connect with our collection. And you know, it isn't always easy to get big institutions to think about new ideas. And these are minutes from a curator's meeting in 1967. And the first line says, the use of an IBM computer is being considered by the Metropolitan Museum. And Mr. Watson of IBM is trying to make this happen. Who's Mr. Watson of IBM? Does anybody know? He was the founder of the company and chairman of our board. And he was bringing this to the Met. You can imagine, this is as if Mark Zuckerberg said to us that we have this new platform called Facebook. Would you please consider using it? I love point number 2. Dr. Fisher doubts a computer would be a time-saving device. That's pretty funny, right? I originally, when I first made this presentation, I used to hide his name because I said that's not fair. But then somebody said Dr. Fisher was right. And so we should give him credit for it. So what do we do in digital media at the Met? Here's a list of all the content we produce in just 1 year at the Met. And if you want to take a picture of that, you can see the range of things we do, including 3,800 tweets, 500 blog posts. We are working like a media company. And we're doing this in mobile as well as in other platforms. I just wanted to give you an example of what we're doing in mobile. We have our audio guides, which you all know, right? Those are the guides that you put on your headphones when you go to a museum. And we found that our international visitors love to get audio guides, but New Yorkers hate them because it says tourist, so they don't like that. So what we did was we took the entire audio guide and put it on your phone. And you don't need the app. You can just go onto the browser, metmuseum.org on your smartphone or iPad, and you can listen to all our audio content free. So what it shows you is that people love the content. They may not love your format. And that's something that you can think about as you're doing. Like, what are you doing to free your content, I think is important. We do have an app. We first made it on iPhone, but now we have it as well on Android. And we learned a lot doing that. And I wanted to share with you 3 principles we used in creating our app. And I'd encourage you to use this for any work you do. Make it useful, simple, and delightful. Useful, simple, delightful. And I think that many projects are actually the opposite of this. They're very complicated and hard to figure out. So make it useful, simple, and delightful. Anyone know what the app is on the extreme right on the screen? What is that app? New York Times. It's not the main New York Times app. It's NYT Now app. The NYT Now app. I encourage you to look at that. Has anyone here seen it? It's a free app from the New York Times that has only 30% of the New York Times, but it's the right 30%. And these, along with these other apps, are what I use as my guide for brilliant apps that we should all be looking at in terms of design and how it works and what it does. So please check out NYT Now app. It's so good, and it's very social and very, very friendly. Next to it is the TripIt app. Anyone here using it? Look around you. 1, 2 people, 3. I don't know how anybody travels without TripIt. It's a free service to arrange, not to book your travel, but to arrange and make it clear for you. So please take a look at TripIt. Moves is an app that tracks your steps, and I find it very useful in terms of exercise. And then finally, Dark Sky is a terrific app. Anyone here using that? One person, thank you. Dark Sky only does one thing. It tells you if it's going to rain where you're standing in the next hour. And it's a $3 app. And you'll say, why would you pay for a $3 app when there are thousands of free apps? This is so beautiful and works so well that it's worth it, right? So sometimes it's about the content. Sometimes it's about the format. Sometimes it's about how it looks. And it's always about putting those 3 things together. And I encourage you to look at Dark Sky as an example of what it can do. We also have a media lab where we work on the future of culture. And we do lots of interesting things there, including thinking about ways in which we can get more of you to think about culture. So I want to tell you about a fun thing we created called Meow Met. If you're on Google Chrome, you know how you open new tabs? If you open your new tab, every time you open it, you get a new cat from the Met. So it's a way for us to be in your life without you even thinking about us, right? It's a way for us to connect with you even when we don't need you for something. Yeah.
Did you come about with that idea? Were you looking for something like that? Was it like a
Thank you for asking. Our student, we have interns in the media lab, and she came up with this idea. And it's just such a beautiful, easy thing to do. So thousands of people now are thinking about the Met, even when they're not looking for culture or thinking about culture. It just shows up in their stream. So that's a way of doing that. That's why we're so active on social as well. By the way, I just want to point out that's Nuria. Nuria.net, would you just wave? Her Twitter handle is @nuria.net. And she's a former student at Columbia, and she's here, works at Fusion, and is a great example of someone you should connect with, even though you don't need anything from her right now. But connect with her. She is one of the best minds in thinking about digital and journalism, media, etc. So nuria.net. So I hope you will connect with her there. And net is her real last name, which is amazing. So let's talk about social media at the Met and what we're doing. Just a reminder, I know some people came in later. I have my presentation is online, bit.ly. If you go to @Sree, you'll see my slides are already tweeted out. So if you want to find my presentation, it's all online, and you can access it and share it there directly. So just @Sree, you can find my presentation there. Here's what we do at the Met in terms of social media. We do 3,800 tweets a year. We do 3,000 pins. We have so many different platforms you can see there. We doubled our social media team to 2 people. And the name of the 2 people are on the screen, @Taylor C. Newby and @MuseumMiami. @MuseumMiami has 5 M's in her name. Her name is Kim Drew. I'd love for you to just say hi to them and say, hey, your colleague is talking about you here in Miami. So they're in New York, bring them down to Miami by just talking at them very, very easily. So please do say hi when you get a chance, and also follow them to see how they're working. One of the things we did with the main Met account is we put their Twitter handles on the Twitter bio so that people can interact with them instead of only interacting with the main site. So I encourage you to say hi to Taylor C. Newby and SMWMiami. And we do about 3 Facebook posts a day. And when we went to the folks at Facebook to talk about some things, they said you should be doing 10 to 20 posts a day. And you can imagine that this is already so much work for us. It's something for us to think about. But the main lesson from this is that everything our team does is strategic, is planned. They use a calendar to plan everything they post, and they do a really good job of it, and that's why they're so successful. We have other social media channels as well, including a Weibo account. Weibo is spelled Weibo, but pronounced Weibo, is the biggest Chinese network because they block Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are all blocked in China. I'm not sure about Instagram. Does anyone know if Instagram is blocked? Is okay in China? Certain places. But certainly YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook are blocked. So we have a Weibo account. China represents the largest number of visitors to the Met, and so it's very important for us to connect. We are the 7th most followed art museum in the world, which is great, but a Spanish agency called La Magnetica did a study and said we were the most influential museum in the world. And I would gladly give up thousands of followers in return for influence. And that should be what all of you are thinking about as well. That important thing is influence, not the raw numbers. Because after all, you can buy 50,000 followers for $100. Please never do that, right? There are tools like statuspeople.com that can show you how many fake followers somebody has. All these politicians buy followers, so please never do that. But I want you to look at the 5th person on this list is a woman named Mar Dixon, at Mar Dixon, M-A-R-D-I-X-O-N, and she lives in a little village in England, but she's the 5th most influential person in the museum world. How is that even possible? Look at all the famous museums below her in terms of influence. So how did she do it? She only has a few thousand followers. She did it by being the center of the conversation. And I encourage all of you to become the Mar Dixons of your field. Whatever your topic is, how do you become the Mar Dixon of your field? And what you do that by becoming the center of conversation, and that's what you are seeing there. At the Met, we put our boss, Tom Campbell, on Instagram, and I hope you'll all follow him. He's our CEO and director. And people said to me, Sree, you're Mr. Twitter, why isn't he on Twitter? And the reason is there's less drama on Instagram, right? Just less drama on Instagram. And he's doing a new kind of leadership. And I'd encourage all of you to study what he's doing. He was named one of the 23 best art Instagrams in the world, and he was doing it all from his iPhone 4S. He's just got a 6, so imagine the damage he can do now, right? He's going to be awesome. But just to think about how a leader connects with his stakeholders, including employees and the wider world, it's unbelievable what he's been able to do, and I encourage you to look him up at Thomas P. Campbell on Instagram. Now, I want to share with you the dirty secret of social media. Almost everyone will miss almost everything you do, hold on, until you make a mistake. Right? Then everybody will notice what you're doing, and that becomes a problem. I think one of the worst things to happen last year was the ice bucket challenge in some ways. Why? Because the ice bucket challenge meant every nonprofit and every company's boss was like, yo, where's my ice bucket challenge? Right? Do you remember there was the rice bucket challenge, the ice cream bucket challenge, all these things. And what I tell people is if you are ever in a meeting where someone says, let's make something that will be viral, there's a 99% chance it will not be viral, right? What you have to do is to understand that most people will miss what you're doing. That's why one of my tips to everybody is if you have something important, say it more than once. Many people will have a big project they've done and they'll tweet it once, presuming everybody's seen it. It's just not true. You have to promote it, you have to mention it more than once if you're doing it. I'm going to stop in a couple of minutes so I can take your questions. I want to show you some lessons from a university, another big institution, Harvard, where they have all these social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Flickr, etc. But they also did something unusual. The chief digital officer at Harvard is a woman named Perry Hewitt, at Perry Hewitt. I hope you'll follow her or say hi to her, bring her down to Miami by tweeting at her right now. And she did something amazing. She put Harvard on Giphy. You all familiar with what that is? That's this channel of animated GIFs or GIFs. And when people ask me at the Met, how do you do innovative new things without, upsetting the institution, I say nothing I can suggest will be as crazy as Harvard having a Giphy channel, right? That's what's so wonderful about it. She understands that for Harvard to stay relevant, this is one of the ways that they can do that. Does that make sense? So please say hi to Perry. And I wanted to show you how much things change on social and how quickly they change by just showing you something I discovered today, that now the pinned tweet is available on phone, which it wasn't before, right? If you know, the pinned tweet was only on the desktop version. Now the pinned tweet is on your regular mobile version of Twitter as well. And by the way, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a hawk that was flying in front of the Met. So when I came back from vacation, I said that hawk is how I feel when I go into the Met every day. So a couple of quick tips about your Twitter page here. A couple of things. One is, please work on your Twitter bios. Make them as useful to other people as possible by highlighting the things that you work on. I find that most people have ineffective Twitter bios. Make them effective by giving information and by linking them out to the things that you're interested in and what you're doing. You can see I have my podcast here. I even have a shout out to my wife here. And you can see you can click right to the museum. I also have 3 URLs in a single Twitter bio. So you can put more URLs and things in there. Next, this overall picture here that you have, I really encourage you to use something that's relevant, because this is part of your branding. This item, and the bio are together your branding on Twitter. And I encourage you to think of them holistically. In terms of your Twitter bio, I tell people it should reflect your best current you. Your best current you is what you should do on there. And then here's the post I did earlier today of our presentation, and here it is. Now, one lesson for you here, I can just show you that I made a mistake in my mind when I look at this. Because when people are looking at your Twitter feeds, I always encourage you to create what I call thumb stoppers. Because what happens, people are going online and going like this with their thumbs, right? What do they stop at? They stop at images. So make sure whenever you're posting, you try your best to have a link or have a video or an image to stop the thumb, right? And I didn't follow my own advice with that particular post. You see that? You see, which one are you more likely to stop on? This one or this one, but not this one, right? So always think about, can you put an image in what you're posting? And I try to do that every time I'm posting. Everybody get that? So those are some of the thoughts I have from here. I'm going to give you my social media success formula after taking a couple of questions. So let's do that, and then I'll give you the formula, and then we'll finish. So questions? Yes. Hi. And tell us who you are. Hi. I hope you all heard that heard the question. I think it's a very important one. You know, one of the things that happens is when you start looking at your analytics, the first thing that happens is disappointment, right? You have this idea that when you start posting that everybody's reading your stuff, and the answer is nobody's reading your stuff, and that's really problematic. On Facebook, we have 1 million followers. We have about 20% organic reach, 25%. That's pretty good for us. Many places have 2%. So what we have to do is with every post, we're really thinking, who is this aimed at? We look at the time of day when we post it. We look at the type of content. And on each platform, we have a different strategy. And if you go to my presentation, at the end of my presentation, you will see about maybe 15 slides of our strategy is at the end of this slide. So if you just click on this, you'll find how we work with every platform that we are on. One way to think about it is that we don't have an answer, but we are studying it very, very carefully to try and understand this. And we hired a wonderful digital analyst from the Tate Museum in London, her name is Elena Villa-Espesa, and her Twitter handle is Elenustica, Elenustika, Elenustica. Follow her, ask her questions. Her PhD is on social media and measurement. And she would be a great person. She's constantly posting what she's learning about our work and the work of other places. So please follow her, tweet at her, say hi, and see what she's doing, because this is her job, is to help us figure that out. We have not figured it out. But part of it is, if I were working with a client, is expectation management, right? Because I think they really expect that everything you do, everybody's seeing. But I can give you from my own personal life, about 5 years ago, I had a friend who tweeted something for me. He had 1 million followers from a big account. And so he said, 1 million followers, so I'm going to get 1 million views. Maybe I can IPO. Maybe I'm ready to become very successful. And we got 99 clicks, right? So I was very upset, but then I said, that's 98 more clicks than I would have gotten to that particular item. So who comes and sees it is as important as the total number. And I'll also give you, I promised, how to find your 100 biggest followers. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I have about 10 minutes, so let's go with questions. Hi.
Going back to
Yeah.
your specifically the Ask a Curator hashtag that she's started, how, as an organization, do you assess trending hashtags that you didn't particularly brand? Like, when is it okay to jump onto that? When is it okay? When should you step back and stay out of that conversation?
Terrific question about jumping on hashtags. I think we do a lot of that at the Met, partly because there's so many possibilities at the Met. We have every culture represented there. So, you know, when it's National Left-Handers Day, we'll post something from a left-handed artist or something like that. So we do a lot of hashtag kind of jumping onto hashtags, and you'll see when you go through the Met account, you'll see so many terrific hashtags that we jump on. We don't mind that it's not branded with us. We want to be part of the conversation, and that doesn't mean we jump on every single thing, right? But we pick and choose, and when we do, we want it to be things that reflect well on the Met, and we're not jumping on every hashtag out there. Another question? Yes. Hi. Okay, so the question was in-house versus outside. At the Met, we have a lot of people in digital media. We have 70 people in digital media, but we only have 2 people on social. And of course, that's double of what we had before. And what we look at is, in terms of social, I think there's lots of advantage in having people in-house, because we want them to live with the artwork, be interacting with staff on a daily basis. But if I couldn't afford 2 full-time people, we'd certainly use an agency. It really depends how much time and value you're giving to social. And my suggestion would be that we're not giving enough. Everybody, including us, we could be doing more on social. We could be listening more. We could be doing multiple languages. The only language we do is Chinese because of Weibo. But we really need to think about how we can do all of that better. Another question? Okay, so now let me give you my social media success formula and then we'll be done. Sorry about that. So first I want to mention the, again, if you go to my slides, at the end of the slides you'll find our social media strategy is all on there that you can see. But I wanted to show you a tool, oops, sorry, that you should all check out called Twiangulate. Twiangulate, which is a tool that helps you, just like triangulate but with a W. It helps you find who your 100 most influential followers are. So please take a look at that. I think you'll find it very useful in the work that you're doing. It'll tell you who your 100 most influential followers are, and it'll help you to connect with them. And it'll also give you what we call a reach number. It'll tell you how many people your top 100 followers have, how many followers your top 100 followers have. So another way to look at this, I do some work with the UN, and the UN has 3 million followers on its main account. But its top 100 followers have 300 million followers themselves, right? So obviously all 3 million followers you have is important, but the top 100 have 300 million followers. So what is important for me in social media is not who follows you, but who follows you, I think is another way to think about this. That who follows you is really important and part of what we need to be thinking about. And Twiangulate is run by a guy named Henry Copeland. And I encourage you to follow him. He's at HC on Twitter. He lives in North Carolina, and you can just tweet at him and say, hey, at HC, we're talking about you here in Miami. So what I'm going to do now is to just give you my social media success formula so that you can all look at it and get some ideas from it. So what I'm going to do now is just go to the end of my presentation. So this is going to feel a little bit like a terrible flashback, right? You can see all the slides here. I should have planned this better. Just give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right. So let me just play this here. So first you're going to see 5 slides I put together. Sorry, I thought there was no audio on this. Sorry. Let me just come out here so I can see what you're seeing. Okay, so these are 3 social media questions I encourage you to look at. So there's 5 slides. You can quickly take a photograph, and it's a good practice to take pictures also, right? So 3 social media questions. Is your social media optimized? Who follows you? And are you tracking new ideas and tools? Pause that there. You can see all the things we talked about already. Like musical chairs. Stop it. Raw counts mean nothing. Find and connect with influencers. There's Twiangulate, and you can see the numbers from the UN. I also tell people, don't be an ask on social media. Don't be an ask means don't be the first time someone hears from you, you're asking for something. And I said this somewhere and somebody tweeted, Sree says don't be an ass on social media. And that's also true, but that's not what I said. There is a K at the end of it, but if you don't hear it, that's okay. If you don't hear it. So don't be an ask on social media. Here are some of the tools that I'm using. I'm really obsessing about LinkedIn and how we should use it. How many of you are on LinkedIn? How many of you know what you're doing on LinkedIn? You see the hands start falling, right? You turn into Indian dancers. You go like this, maybe, maybe not, right? LinkedIn is the most underappreciated of all the social networks. And we all should be doing more on it, and including me, and we should all be testing it out more. So now we're ready for the formula, which is just going to come up now. All right, so this is the formula, and I'd encourage you to take a picture. But now we're going to say these words out loud. I love that everyone's got their camera out. That's terrific. I want us to say these words out loud together. We're going to pretend we're in a Catholic church on Sunday led by a Hindu priest. So it's a weird church, right? Okay. Fit right into Wynwood. I think it would just fit in right here. Okay, so we're going to say these words together. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. Hallelujah. All right. We're going to start with the word helpful, and then we're just going to say them. Okay, ready?
He was asking
Louder.
for bigger. Do you still have it? No, I just went upstairs.
Amen. You've never been to a Hindu church led by a Christian or whatever? You've never done that before, so that's what we do. So there's the formula.
Yes.
Not every post needs to be all those things, but every post needs to be some of those things. And that's my formula for your success on social media. And I encourage you to study it and to see how you might be able to use it in your own work. You have my contact information, and you remember I started by saying that the scarcest resource in the world is human attention, and you gave me an hour plus of your attention, and I'm extremely grateful. Thank you very much, everybody.